Everyone, it's Rachel here, founder of Rebound Athletic. Thank you, first of all, for joining the first ever episode of the Rebound Athletic channel. First, if you are struggling with long COVID, post-viral fatigue, or chronic illness like CFS or POTS, fibromyalgia, and have a strong desire to exercise safely and to one day be athletic again, then you are in the right place. So perhaps prior to your illness, you regularly exercised, whether that was in the gym or group training, maybe CrossFit, you ran or played sport, or quite possibly a combination of activities. People listening to this or who are part of our programs tend to share the common goal of or desire to reclaim their athletic identity. So if that's you and you know you can relate to that, then you are definitely in the right place because our goals are to help you move safely and consistently as you heal without causing any setbacks and then build you back even better than before. So the content of this podcast will be aligned to those goals. Through myself and amazing guests that we have lined up, you'll receive practical movement advice that you can implement immediately, and you'll hear lots of recovery stories, also known as rebound stories in our world. They'll fill you with hope and inspiration because this is so important to creating the mindset and outlook necessary for healing and instilling that belief that you will be athletic again. So the purpose of this episode is to give you some background into Rebound Athletic, what it is, what we do, and how we help people, plus how it all started. And to do that, it's important for me to share my story and why I was motivated to start Rebound. But before we get into that, I'm going to share a win from inside one of our programs. And I'm thinking of doing this occasionally when I record these episodes because our clients, or rebounders as we call them, deserve a big shout out, and B, to illustrate to listeners the results that are possible to achieve, which I know can feel hard to believe when faced with such complex and often, life limiting conditions. But the wins I will share are from people who are where you are or have been where you are. And in this episode, the win comes from Tasha, who is a member within our baseline club. She's from Virginia, USA. And Tasha's had long COVID since 2021. She's had a bumpy ride with it, as is common for most people, but has had some breakthroughs this year. And before becoming unwell, she lived a very active life. She's a mum of four, and she's often out hiking and loves to paddleboard. Last week, inside the program in the training app that we use, she posted this win, which I'm going to read out here. My win the past week has been consistency. I am resisting the urge to overdo it. I've stuck to my 2 workouts, 10 to 15 minutes of walking, daily breath work and meditation, plus reading at night to my kids. I know big wins are around the corner, but for now, I am celebrating the simple moments in life and the things that I was unable to do just a few months ago. So my immediate reaction to this one, which I wrote to Tasha inside the club, was, Tasha, this is beautiful. And I think it was because it was the reading to her kids bit that really got me as a mum myself. And I've got a toddler who was born when at my worst. And so I totally understand the importance of this daily activity. And I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things she mentioned as well in this win. She said resisting the urge to overdo it. So this is so key to staying consistent, no matter how small the volume movement you're doing, that allows you to be consistent. For Tasha, that was sticking to 2 workouts within level 1 of the baseline program that she's doing at the moment. And just to explain what a workout is, because it's not lifting metal in the gym, right? It's very short, low impact sessions consisting of mobility and then what I like to call muscle activation and light strengthening exercises, but they don't require a huge amount of energy from you. And what Tasha has been able to do is to add this movement on top of her existing activities that she was doing before the joint program. So the walking that she was doing 10-15 minutes a day, and the other daily activities that she's been doing without overexerting, by keeping the volume within those sessions low enough to allow that. And this is the aim of the baseline club. It's where it got its name, right? So, as Tasha's capacity grows and she continues to heal, we will gradually nudge her baseline forward without ever overexerting as she builds out capacity. So I also love how in this when Tasha's celebrating those small moments, those simple moments, like reading at night to her kids, and this kind of this level of presence and gratitude is one of those gifts in return that chronic illness has given us, right? For having our life taken away. And I've experienced it. I know so many people who discover this awareness that they never had before as they start to pick up, as they begin to recover and beyond. So it's an awesome first win to share in this episode. And well done, Tasha, again, if you're listening. Now, I mentioned at the start that this episode would explain how Rebound Athletic came about. And to do that, I need to take you back to where my journey with long COVID began. So let's dive in. So this chapter of my life began in June of 2021. And at the time, my wife was 7 weeks pregnant. I was working my corporate job. I was extremely busy. We were getting ready for a huge product launch. I'm a product manager. And I was training for the London Marathon. On top of that, I was teaching online group exercise classes with one or two of my colleagues, which I've been doing since the start of the pandemic. So extremely busy, a lot on. And I then got COVID. And whether it was the pressures of what's going on in my life at the time or my personality, I'm not sure, but I didn't give it the respect it deserved. I didn't rest. I also, obviously, at times I was forced to when I was so ill, but other than that, I just kept going. And I think I just thought it would, I'd get over it after a couple of weeks like everyone else. So I tried to continue working when I could. And it just didn't occur to me at all that this would be a prolonged illness, right? I was so fit and healthy. On the outside, I was the least likely person that all my friends and colleagues knew that would become chronically ill following a virus. And people talk about, type A personalities being more affected potentially by this kind of condition. And I just don't know if it's that black and white. I think it's human nature to look for reasons, and I've been guilty of that, over the last few years, looking for reasons of why me. I think I've come to conclusion that I will never know, and that's okay. And the science isn't definitive around this. Why some people are more likely to have a long COVID type condition following a virus. So I realised over time it's actually easier not to keep trying to dissect that. And if I was to do my time again, I think I'd go back and accept that much sooner and just focus on healing and just what, rather than why me, and take that kind of why not me approach. And I think if I was to be challenged by health again, or even any other sort of life struggles that are inevitably going to come up, then I hope to be able to bring that mindset in a little sooner. But yeah, going back to the start, what I found very difficult in the first few months was an identity crisis that I found myself in. I'd gone from training every day, running, lifting weights for years, my whole life, right? I didn't know who I would be without exercise and sport. I've been doing it since I was 4 years old, literally, and I'm now coming close to 40. Yeah, that was the hardest thing for me. I think when that kind of initial period of, okay, 2 weeks have gone by, I'm still not better. Okay, 6 weeks have gone by, I'm still not better. It then started to occur to me that, what if I don't get better? What if I can never exercise again? I don't know what I am without that. I was mourning that and I was grieving that. And then because of that, I, like many people, exercised on better days, um, pushed those boundaries. A, because of that, but B, because I didn't know anything about the condition. I had no idea about post-viral fatigue. I had no idea about CFS. I had heard about long COVID. I didn't know anything about it. And I wasn't looking. It was kind of a bit oblivious, still just kind of thinking one day I'd wake up and all be okay. Most of the time I couldn't exercise. I had just about enough in the tank to get through work most days and then crash out and then use the weekends to recover again. But occasionally I would feel somewhat normal and use that to go into the gym or play paddle tennis and inevitably pay for it a few days later and not be able to get out of bed. So I was in this kind of boom and bust typical pattern for the first 6 months. I remember about 12 weeks in, actually, I started to feel considerably better. And I was like in the right, in the right direction in a quite linear fashion for a few weeks. I was like, oh, I'm getting better. I'm beating this. And I just started living my life again. Exercise more, I socialized more, I went away for weekends because I didn't know that I perhaps wasn't healed. And in that time, I've probably still been just focusing on rest. And I think in hindsight, that's what I would have done. Um, and who knows if it made any difference in the long run? I don't know, but it probably wouldn't have hurt, of course. So yeah, I do wonder if in that time where I had a bit of a window where things were looking up and well, maybe I was creating capacity to heal, that if I had doubled down on healing and rest and doing those kind of things, if I'd gone for the next few years. But it's one of those things. Yeah, so about 6 months in, I continued in this boom bust fashion. I was in the office one day and had a crash. I found myself in the toilets at lunchtime having a panic attack because I didn't know how I was going to get through the rest of my day. And I emerged and found my boss, and she took me around Tesco's car park, which is next to our office, so that no one would see me having a breakdown. um, and then sent me home and said, look, just you need to take some time off. Take the rest of the year off. It was already beginning December, and take some proper rest for the first time since you've been ill. So I did. Oh, I did that. Went home, did that, and then a week later, in that time, I got my second infection, and I I thought things were bad before, in terms of had a quite a life limiting situation before, and it just became tenfold. I was now just constantly in bed. The fatigue was relentless. Migraines appeared all over my head, all these other symptoms, burning skin, my gut issues got worse, food insensitivities, and insomnia was crazy. Um, and also at this time, because my daughter was 2 months away from being born, I became extremely anxious, um, worried that I wasn't going to be better for the birth. I didn't know how I was going to look after my wife and my newborn. So what I know now, I'm without a doubt believe that compounded my physical symptoms. I blame myself for getting COVID in the first instance because I went out to watch the final of the Euros when England lost to Italy, and I'm pretty sure that's where I got it. So I felt a lot of guilt and shame for going out when my wife was 7 weeks pregnant, when the pandemic was still happening. Like, yeah, places had opened up and we were allowed to go to bars and restaurants. Um, and that's taken me a long time to dampen that. So yeah, like at this time I was desperate. I started for the first time researching, looking at forums, Facebook groups, trying to find out how to get better. And that led me, unfortunately, down the ME route because that's where the parallel's being drawn. And when I say unfortunately, because it led me to a YouTube video from a ME consultant, expert in this space, who basically said that long COVID and chronic fatigue and ME are the same thing, and you can't ever heal. And I'm a really trusting person, so I've got doctor in front of the name. I was like, okay, well, they know what they're talking about. And so I then believed that. I believed that my current situation was it for my life. I believed that I would always be bedbound, that I would never get better, that I would never be able to look after my family. If my mental health was bad before, it went completely down the toilet. I remember specifically waking up one morning. I've been having thoughts that I was worthless, that I was better off not here. I had these thoughts a few days and I decided I need to, despite my wife being 8 months pregnant, I need to tell her I need help. Um, so I did, not an easy conversation, obviously. I then got help, I got therapy, and that was great because it just helped me get through that next period, helped me to say manage the birth. I wasn't giving birth. We joke about it now, but literally it was how do I get through this birth? How do I be there? I didn't know if I could be there. And my wife took a picture of me when she'd been like 10 hours in labour. She just had an epidural put in and there's been zonked out on the chair in the corner. Um, so it's a bit of a joke now. But yeah, like it was without doubt a very dark time apart from when my daughter's born, that did obviously bring some light into the situation, a lot of light. In that same period, I came across Nuffield Health here in the UK who are running a fatigue management and graded exercise type program. And I thought, oh, brilliant, there's actually some people here that want to help. And I hadn't had any help yet. It was such a, in some ways, new condition, despite me and chronic fatigue being around for a long, long time. And obviously, I was desperate to exercise. And I thought, well, there's an organisation here with experts. They must know what they're doing. They must have designed a really good program that's going to help me. And they said I'm applicable to it and where I am. It's a complete application form. So I'm going to put my trust in them. And look, the emotional support was fantastic. I had a really empathetic coach who was lovely, and just having someone to talk to and listen was amazing. The fatigue management pacing, I've got my personal views on that now, having recovered with brain retraining, my body healing being the catalyst, which I'll come on to. But that was, pretty standard stuff. But the movement was problematic, unfortunately, and not intentionally, I'm sure, but just problematic. Whilst it was low intensity, it was still graded. It was still progressive, which, as we know through experience now, that is not helpful when you're dealing with a fatigue illness, a post-exertional malaise illness, and yeah, like the learnings from that experience is one of the reasons that I set up Rebound Athletic, more specifically the Baseline Club, which is all the programs that I'll tell you more about later. But graded is in the name, graded, and it would there would be weekly progressions, and whether I might be compared to a normal general population program, yeah, they were small, but it didn't allow for the fact that actually maybe you're not ready to progress. It just wasn't flexible enough. Like it didn't allow you to, I'm just going to do a bit of mobility today, or I'm going to do nothing at all. Because you'd signed up to a program, you felt obligated. I felt obligated to go, and because these people were helping. I remember specifically an instance when there was a in-person class, because someone that you could do online. But there was in-person class since we were kind of told that we should try and attend. So I got out of bed into a taxi to get to this class, and the fact that I had to get out of bed into a taxi, like I couldn't just get there myself, shows you why I shouldn't be doing this. And it was the most active session we'd done yet. We were doing things like walking lunges and high knees and jogging and stuff across the room. And I was like, Christ, like I just got out of bed, and then of course I went crashing. And I think then like grade exercise probably could work for some people if you're way, way, way further down the recovery path already. You've already got that tolerance built up. It's low intensity still, so you can handle that kind of then gradual progression of it. But if you're just coming out of the acute phase, you're beyond, like you're still very much recovering, you've still got PEM, you've still got very fluctuating condition, you're still mostly bedbound, that like absolutely, it just wasn't appropriate. So I learned a lot of lessons from that. In a way, I'm glad because it's allowed me to help people now and take those learnings. And I'll share like what that looks like in terms of what we offer a bit later. So yeah, my daughter was born then in end of February 2022, and as I already said, that was kind of this amazing thing to live for, and to keep going for. And I remember friends and families and colleagues saying, "Oh gosh, I don't know how you're doing this. You've got a newborn and you're chronically ill. Like how you doing that?" And I just, you know what, I don't know what it's like to have a newborn, and to tell you what it's like in terms of like being exhausted or sleep deprived, because I was already fucked, for lack of a better word. I was already an insomniac. I was already constantly fatigued. I had nothing in the tank any time. So it almost like didn't make a difference. So if we have another child, you can ask me this again, and I'll let you know. But from the moment she was born, no matter how I felt, I wanted my thing to be her bath time and bedtime routine. And it was amazing because over the next year or two, it became this marker, and I still do her bath and bedtime today, and it became this marker in my recovery. And I really recommend people trying to find markers like that. I remember like how awful and unwell I felt at the start and for the next year, but bit by bit over time, that that event, that activity I did every day, when I look back, became easier and easier. It wasn't a chore, but I mean like how I felt, you know, physically. And it was kind of like this, yeah, this marker. I could use that to reflect on the progress that I made. And there's someone I follow on Instagram called To You from Steph. She's got an amazing page full of her illustrations, and one of them said something like, "How proud would your past you be of where you are now?" And that really like resonated with me. How proud would your past self be of where you are now? And if I think back to 2 years ago and where I am now, I didn't believe that I would be where I am now. And second, I'll be so proud, like so proud of how I fought and how I've not given up and how I did everything in my control when I found out what was in my control to get better. So that recovery journey really started a couple months after my daughter was born. And when I decided to stop my corporate job, and I've been sort of trying to rotate half an hour chunks of work with bed rest. It just wasn't sustainable. I felt like I had to work before this point because I had a child on the way. I didn't think that I had another option, and then it just got to a point where I just wasn't getting better, and I didn't have time to focus on healing. I sat down with my wife and we looked at our finances. We looked at worst case scenarios, being I wouldn't get better and would have to find somewhere else to live, and but we realised that ultimately my health was most important, and we would find a way. So that was the first step, actually. And then as soon as I'd made that decision and I stopped work, I then joined Susie Bolt's program. I'm sure many of you will be aware of her amazing program. And I'd heard about it before, but again, because I didn't have the capacity to do it. But finally I joined. And what was great about it was, A, the community was different to anything I'd come across on other forums. It was a much more of a positive space, a very kind of comforting space in some ways, because people were knew exactly what you've been through, offering a lot of support and empathy. But also it was an introduction to nervous system regulation, which is a part of the recovery process I had not been introduced to yet. I tried everything that I could medically, every supplement under the sun. I hate to know what I've spent. I tried to never add it up because I don't want to know on what I've spent on supplements. Nutrition, like, experimental drugs. I did manage. I was fortunate to have private healthcare, and I had a functional doctor for a time, and we did loads of stuff on my gut, and yeah, but none of this move the dial at all with my recovery. Being part of Susie's program and doing the yoga nidra and the gentle movement and mobility and the breath work introduced me to this mind body healing concept. And then I also had a chat with one of the other members who reached out to me when she saw that I was struggling when I first joined the group and said, "Hey, have you heard about brain retraining? I'm about to do the Gupta program." And I was like, "No, but I'm really open to this. I mean, I'll try anything, but it sounded up my street anyway." I know that Susie has a firm program. It wasn't available, I don't think, then, but she's since launched a firm program I've heard really good things about. And I decided to use an app called Curable, mainly because I like the concept of having it in my pocket. I didn't want to turn up to live classes or sessions. I had a child as well. Like I didn't want to feel that pressure to commit. And I'm quite techie, so I like the app. But actually, it's really well laid out, and I know it's getting quite popular, and a lot of my clients have been using it as well. What's great about the Curable app is that they really break down the science and the concepts around neuroplasticity early on, and like that knowledge becomes very powerful, because if you don't understand how this stuff works, you're never gonna trust in it and believe it, and that's half the battle. So if anyone who's like heard about brain retraining or is considering it, I would say like just go and research it a bit, go in with an open mind, download something like the Curable app, which actually I think it was, I don't know what it is now, but it was something like $50 for the year there, which is pretty damn cheap. Do those educational modules and then make a decision if you think it's worth giving a try. And I honestly say this, it's never going to do any harm. Like this stuff isn't harmful. So look, rest hadn't made a difference, drugs hadn't made a difference, supplements hadn't made a difference, nothing had made a difference. The brain retraining that I did through Curable was where I had start to have a real shift change. What was key for me was understanding the concept around conditioned responses. When you have a repeated stimulus that then triggers a certain response in your body because your brain has learned that. And that really resonated for me. And I basically hypothesized that my need to be in bed most of the day, which I still was, had become conditioned through that time prior to my daughter being born, when I believed that in order to get through my days, I needed to rotate bed rest with work. And I did at the time. I was broken, but I think that just came more reinforced as time went on, and I kept doing it. So I needed to break that circuit. I needed to teach my brain and my body that actually maybe I didn't need to. And so I did a test on myself. I'm not saying people do this, by the way. I'm just telling you what I did. And we all have to take some level of autonomy in our own health and our own recovery. But I basically wanted to test this hypothesis. And so I decided that no matter how shit I felt, I was not going to lie down and go to bed. And it was incredibly difficult. The first day, the second day, but then like I think the third or fourth day, it just started to get a little bit, tiny bit easier. And then every day after that, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then 2 weeks later, I did not routinely need to go to bed. And I was like, wow, like just wow. And that was all the proof I needed that I could get better. And that's when I started getting my hope back. And look, that wasn't the end at all. That was not the end. That was 2 years ago. And about 18 months at least of solid commitment to my body healing after that. Of course, it's not linear, but over that time, the good periods started getting longer, the dips started getting shorter, the symptoms started dampening down. And that started giving me capacity to heal. That capacity meant that I could move more and still up my exercise tolerance. So that was a real turning point. And I think when I started to heal, and I did Curable for a few months, and I kind of understood then what I needed next, like how I was evolving in my recovery journey, and like I created some more capacity, I felt, to do more movement. And as an ex-athlete and as a personal trainer, I knew what exercises I needed to do most and what was important for my body to keep my joints and muscles healthy as I continued to heal, and created a program which later formed the basis of the program within the Baseline Club. Anyone knows this condition is so consuming mentally, right? At that time, I was like, I need to remove myself from forums everywhere, and I want to remove long COVID from my vocabulary. Right, it's just consuming me, and it's just so triggering. And so yeah, so I kind of backed away from kind of everything else and started doing my own thing. Started doing my own movement program. I know my body and what my weaknesses are, and having obviously been very mobile for a while, I knew what I wanted to do. It was self-preservation at this stage, and a sense of self-preservation is also one of the reasons why my main coaching offer within Rebound Athletic is the 90-day Rebound Method. And it's for those people that are actually recovered, or at least at the tail end of recovery and are safe to properly train back. They're not experiencing pain, significant symptom kickback. They've already built back some exercise tolerance and walking and other activities. And the other reason I focused the business on this, because at this time, this is going back 2 years ago now, or just less than that, when I started to get that hope back, I was like, I believed that I would be able to exercise again. I believed that I would get strong again. I was like, if I can recover a little bit, then surely full recovery has to be possible. So I started to see if I could find like a strength and conditioning program for people that have recovered from non-COVID or CFS or other chronic conditions from someone that's been through what I've been through, that helped coach me through it, and I couldn't. So I decided to create my ideal reconditioning program for when I was ready to do it. It would be another year before it was, but it was a great exercise because it gave me something to look forward to, and it took me a long time to write, a couple months, because I was so unwell still. Even though I was starting to have seen some improvements and create some healing space, I was still, especially cognitively, you still couldn't cope with much. At a time. So, but it also took me a long time because it's so methodical, it's so science driven, it's so detailed, and I provide that detail to people completing it as well, so they understand why it's designed the way it is, the weeks and the phases and the workouts themselves. So, because again, that knowledge is powerful, and I think in our world, that knowledge also helps to ease fear. So that's really important. But yeah, so it took me a long time to write. And then I was like, okay, well, I can't do it yet. So I need some guinea pigs, please. So I reached out through certain networks and people I knew with long COVID and say, hey, who were further ahead than me, who were much more sort of towards the end of recovery. I was like, hey, I've got this thing. Would you be interested in giving it a go? And I had some lovely ladies complete it really successfully, fed back and helped me optimize it. And then I completed it, I could say, like a year later, and optimized it even more. And then it became known as the 90-day Rebound Method. It didn't have a name before. And I thought, look, I've got something here. It's been validated by myself, but also by several other people who've had long COVID. They've completed it really successfully. They've gone on to continue training with me or elsewhere and are going from strength to strength. And it really does build back those foundations in a really safe way. And it's incredible, actually. About 6 weeks into it, there's a real turning point in people's strength. I noticed it, but other people notice it as well, like where they really start to feel like getting their strength back, which is actually quite quick. And I think that's muscle memory is a real thing, but also because the pace of the program is just right to get you there. Yeah. So look, I realized that there was something here. There was a gap to help people. Like there are, some great people doing movement for recovery. But where I was really interested at the time was, what about afterwards? I'm going to get better. I want to get back to being athletic and playing sport and feeling strong and powerful again. So for me, that was a gap, but also like I realized that I was in a unique position with my athletic background, with my personal training background, with my non-COVID background to help coach people through this. And to be able to really, really relate, not just physically, but to the emotional struggles, especially the fear and the lack of confidence kind of returning to training. And one of those first clients that I had, which introduced to me because she'd recovered from long COVID and she thought, I'm ready to get fit again. I'm going to go see a personal trainer because that feels like the right thing to do whilst I'm coming back from long-term illness. I don't want to go to an exercise class. They'll push me too hard, or I'll feel like I need to do too much. So I'll go to see a personal trainer because I'll be a bit more controlled and I can talk to them about things. But unfortunately, this personal trainer, while she listened, didn't really obviously get it and proceeded to train her in a way that just was not appropriate. Someone that had been immobile for a very long time, pushed her way too hard, way too soon, and she actually ended up tearing her MCL, which she was devastated because she'd just overcome this illness, was so excited to get back to training, and then boom, another setback. So it just shows us that, for no fault of her own, like most trainers just not going to understand this. And we know that, right? We know it's an invisible illness, and we know that our closest family members who live with us still can't understand it. Only you and me and anyone else that has been through something like this get it. And that's okay. We don't want other people to get it because we don't want them to have had to experience it because it's god awful, right? So look, I found my purpose through this awful health journey, and that's how Rebound Athletic essentially was born. And I believe the 90-day Rebound Athletic, as far as I know, is the only reconditioning program for those that are ready to train back after long COVID or chronic fatigue syndrome or post-viral fatigue. It's also a really applicable program to anyone that's had a significant time out of training. It could be for other illnesses, it could be for grief. I've even had parents complete it. So that's how the business started, solely initially, and working with a handful of clients at a time, and as I continued to recover. And as I said, their feedback really helped me to optimize the program, and I'm really proud of what I've achieved so far. As I'm recording this video, we are now over 2 years since I started recovering, and in this past 9 months, I have felt much more resilient. My health is stable and predictable most of the time, and talking about long COVID doesn't trigger the fear in me, and it's not as mentally, or nowhere near as mentally consuming as it once was. So I decided recently to expand Rebound services to support people during recovery as they heal. And because again, I'm in that unique position to help, I know what the mistakes are that people make when you are going for something like this. I know what a head fuck it is to try and work out your movement baseline. You go from something being okay one day to the next exact same level of activity and volume being catastrophic. So I get the struggles, I get the complexities, I get the nuances, and I get the emotional challenges that go with that. So I don't feel like it's my duty, but I knew that I could make a difference, and I can help people who are very much still healing with safe movement that avoids them relapsing and allows them to keep their muscles and joints healthy as they heal. So I created a baseline club to do just that. And inside that club, there are a number of things. There's something called the Baseline Formula, which is a video course, which essentially leans on all those lessons learned and all the mistakes made to give you complete clarity on how to establish your baseline, what type of movement modalities are best, and the science behind that, and how to get the dosage right and how to know exactly when and how to progress, which is the hardest one to work out, I think, at times. And then you have the baseline movement program, which is essentially the program that I created for myself when I started to heal. It's methodically designed once again. It's got 3 levels, which can take you from bedbound through to priming you essentially to do the rebound method when ready. So pretty much to the end of recovery. And then on top of that is the baseline one-to-one coaching. And how that works is that you get access to me at a really affordable price within the baseline app. You get direct coaching support via chat, and you can reach out to me anytime. And it was really important to make this membership affordable. I didn't want to make this unattainable for a lot of people. So, one-to-one coaching normally costs between $150 to $200 a month. And I've come up with a model which allows me to give you that at a fraction of the cost. It seems to be working really well. The response I've been getting within the program is great. Like, people know I'm there, they can reach out to me really easily. Can respond really quickly because it's all over chat. I leave voice notes. Clients can leave voice notes back to me. So it just works really well, especially people with chronic illness. They don't feel like they've got to get on a call, or they can respond or ask a question when they need to. They haven't got to respond to check-ins that they don't want to. So it's just that flexibility, and it does work really well. And then, of course, there's a community inside the training app that I use, but it's different to any other long COVID or chronic fatigue community because the main focus is about movement. It's such a positive space, and I set the guidelines around what we want from this. Like, we're not there to vent, we're not there to talk about biomedical solutions or non-solutions. We're there to support each other and celebrate each other's wins in movement. And my favorite time of the week is a Wednesday because that's when people share their wins, and honestly, it's so uplifting. And I need to do more to actually to share those wider so people can see what people are doing. But it's just great because people are on the same wavelength. Most people that come through the Baseline Club or the Rebound Method have engaged with some kind of mind-body healing. That seems to be a common theme. So that lends itself really well to commonality and the like-mindedness of people in the group. And it just goes hand in hand when we're introducing movement. Naturally, because I've done a lot of work in that space, my coaching style incorporates a lot of those concepts as well, and reminders to people. And we have people from all over the globe, from as far as New Zealand to quite a lot in North America. We've got someone from Germany, a few from the UK. So it's a great bunch. We've got people aged probably in their late 20s all the way up to their late 50s. It seems to get quite a few people in their late 50s actually who are like recovering from long COVID. They know they're going to fully heal, and they're like, I don't want to lose any more time on my body. Like, I want to get it back. Like, this illness has stolen it from me, and I hear that quite a lot. And then when members join, I encourage them to set goals and a strategy which is centered around habits, because essentially goals are just goals without an action plan. And exercises is not a route or a catalyst to recovery, but it can be a marker in our overall progress. So we also have something called the Rebound Tracker, which I encourage members to complete every 3 months or so. And essentially, members score themselves against various confidence questions, such as like how confident you are in recovering, how confident you are in getting your strength back, from like 1 to 10, I think it is. And then that populates a visual chart. When you complete that every few months, you start to see that chart expanding, and you realize how far you've actually come. Because we know day to day, week to week, it's very hard to see progress. You need a longer time period. And that's a powerful, simple tool that we encourage members to complete. And then, of course, as you're creating more healing space, you have more capacity to move. You create, therefore, more exercise tolerance. You improve your mitochondria function. And then you're really onto a winner, despite the bumps, because obviously, I said already, recovery is not linear. So return to movement is not linear either. You know, I get asked sometimes, can I get a complete personalized program? And it's quite funny because in my corporate job, I work in AI and machine learning. So I'm a big believer in personalization for many things. When it comes to training programs, especially within the chronic illness space, I prefer to work with movement frameworks. There's a reason behind them. They're methodical, they're science-led, my programs, and they're very specific and been created for long COVID or similar conditions. So it doesn't make sense to completely create a brand new program for someone when we've got something that works. It's been proven, it's trusted in. And that trust that clients have actually is really important. It's really important to have that trust that this is the right program for you when we're dealing with fear all the time. So it gives clients that confidence. But what we do is take those core principles, is take the framework, whether that's within the baseline program or the 90-day rebound method, and then we tailor it to individual needs via the one-to-one coaching support that you can get in either programs. I don't offer any of my programs without some kind of coaching support because I think it's essential given how complex the conditions are that we're navigating both physically and emotionally. So that's how we personalize. We look at your preferences, we look at your injury, we look at your needs, we look at where you are in your recovery. But that is in the realms of a proven framework and a proven method. So look, our mission at Rebound Athletic is to help people with long COVID, chronic fatigue syndrome, post-viral fatigue, POTS, and other chronic conditions move safely as you heal, then rebuild you back better than before. So hopefully, having listened to this episode or watched this episode, you have now a better understanding of how Rebound Athletic came to be, what we do, why we are here, who we serve, and why I'm in a unique position to help you. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this first episode. I'm very much looking forward to connecting with you, helping more chronic illness warriors, and seeing how this channel grows. So until next time.